Okay, Golden Globe nuts. The nominations, they are out, and we've got the team to tell you what they mean. We've got Daniel Montgomery, Chris Beachum, Marcus James Dixon, Paul Sheehan. I'm Tom O'Neill. We're the Gold Derby team. And Daniel, let's start with you because you wrote most of the straightforward coverage of the breaking news this morning. What are your takeaways? What really surprised you in this news?
The big takeaway, first of all, is The Shape of Water is really moving up in the award season. It led the Critics' Choice nominations last week. It had 14 there. Now it's the top nominee at the Golden Globes. It had 7. I wouldn't say it overperformed because I don't think any of the nominations it got were particularly surprising. But some other films that could have had lots and lots of nominations, like Call Me by Your Name, they kind of underperformed, and so that left The Shape of Water in really great shape. The Post had 6 nominations. 3 Billboards also had 6 nominations, and 3 Billboards got in for directing and writing, which is
I told you that was going to happen. I told you my sources over there told me that watch out for 3 Billboards. It would explode there. But let me take issue with the suggestion of what you're saying, which is the most nominations might equal a payoff on awards night. Well, that wasn't true 2 years ago. Carol had the most nominations at 5, and then The Big Short had 4. Of course, ended up winning, and so did The Martian. What I find interesting is that now we have to predict who's going to win, of course. So let's look at the list of best directors and see what nominated. And the last couple of years, the Globes have been going with the little indie with a big heart, like Moonlight. They got it right last year. And Barry Gordon was nominated for director last year. And then, of course, La La and Moonlight won. I'm wondering now, does this, by the absence of Call Me by Your Name and Lady Bird in the race for director, mean that they're not in the running for Best Picture? But 3 years ago, Boyhood won Best Drama without Best Director. So some of these tea leaves we look for, in other words, what movies had the most nominations, don't turn out to matter at the Globes, or a movie's not nominated for Best Director, so therefore it can't win. That doesn't mean the Globes are officially insane, everybody.
When you were saying Globe, we're the Golden Globe nuts, but maybe that's the voters that are. But I think that they really have become more mainstream, and we're not seeing nominations for a movie that's akin to The Tourist and Angelina Jolie and Johnny Depp like we would have a few years ago. But I think what's so important about the Globe nominations isn't to do with the Globe winners. Doesn't really nobody who cares who wins the Golden Globes. What it does is it sets up so nicely though for Oscar nomination voting, which will start a couple of days before the Golden Globes are handed out. So when you're Shape of Water and you've got the most nominations, I mean, that nobody knows who's going to win the Globes when Oscar nomination voting starts, but you're perceived as being the front runner at the Globes because you have the most nominations. I think you get a really nice boost. It gives people confidence to nominate you across the board at the Oscars. And I think the film that really got such a boost from the Globes is All the Money in the World, the Ridley Scott movie, right? And the fact that they nominated him for director, but not for Best Drama. The film, it's got 2 performances that are worthy of nomination and the director. And yet when they looked at it, the film must have been dripping wet because he only finished shooting it a couple of days, reshooting it, right? He had to swap out Christopher Plummer for Kevin Spacey and shot those scenes over Thanksgiving and then cobbled it together and showed the Globe voters, and they were impressed enough.
And what's interesting about the supporting actor category is that there's no Michael Stuhlbarg there. Right. And I have him down as the front runner at the Globes, but because of his little speech. He's not nominated, but this is the scenario we all wondered might happen once we heard about the reshoot on All the Money in the World, which is now Christopher Plummer could end up being rewarded for coming to the rescue of this big marquee movie. Let's go to you, Marcus. What do you think of all this stuff?
I'm very, very interested in Best Director this year because you had a lot of people like Jordan Peele. Get Out got nominated for Best Comedy, and of course Greta Gerwig. So bummed about that. But when you look at the 5 directors, it's all drama movies. No comedy film got in for director. which is something I've noticed.
Well,
Let's remind everyone.
Except Ridley Scott was nominated as the director of that notorious comedy, The Martian, the big controversy in Globe history, why that got classified as a comedy, but you're right.
And
Well,
let's remind everyone, when you're going to predict the winners, it's usually not a good thing to predict sweeps unless you're La La Land and you win 7 for 7 last year. So when you're picking the winners, maybe don't go Shape of Water for everything.
Well, now, Chris, I mean, you're really you're our resident expert on the Globes, having sort of been following them for decades, going there into the bleachers. Now you're backstage. What kind of when you were reading this list, what were you pleased to see? What were you surprised not to see?
Well, let me back up on 3 or 4 things that have been mentioned on All the Money in the World. I moved Christopher Plummer in as soon as I heard, into my predictions, as soon as I heard that they were doing a special screening just for Globe voters and only Globe voters. And basically they got the movie ready by that date for Globe voters. I just thought, oh, they're gonna reward it somewhere. I wasn't expecting 3, but I knew they would reward it somewhere just for singling them out like that. Yes. I look at 3 movies in drama, The Post, Shape of Water, 3 Billboards, that all have directing and writing. I don't know how we're going to sort that out. So, as Marcus mentioned, no comedy directors, only 1 comedy writer, correct? Greta Gerwig. Everything else was drama there. So that's some of the things that jumped out at me. Let me look at the list here. I would, right now, when we launch the Prediction Center here in a few, maybe an hour or so, I'm probably going to put The Post in first. I think it'll be one of the 3 we just mentioned because of the directing and writing. And I think Shape and 3 Billboards will get sort of the, they'll split a little bit of the vote of more of a quirky indie feel, and The Post will be the one that's different from those 2. It'll have the more important bent to it. So that's what I'm kind of thinking right now. Call Me by Your Name way underperformed, in my opinion. It should have gotten into writing and directing.
That was a shocker.
Now, Tom, I mean, this is the Hollywood Foreign Press. I mean, like you said, they've sort of cleaned up their act a bit, but there's still, it's less than 100 people, right?
Right, and they do kooky things. Like last year, was it last year? Yeah, with Nocturnal Animals, they gave the Oscar to Aaron Taylor Johnson, and all of a sudden you realize, he wasn't nominated at the Oscars. He was not a serious contender there. They do take left turns.
Well, could you see a scenario, and I know Marcus is a big Meryl Streep fan, and he's written about her at the Oscars and the Globes. Could you see, I mean, last year, they gave her the Cecil B. DeMille and gave a great speech. I mean, could you see them wanting to give her Best Drama Actress just to get her back up on the podium?
Absolutely. Streep can go all the way to the Oscar. Everyone is underestimating her like the Year of the Iron Lady. It was just ridiculous. Everyone was on the Viola Davis bandwagon that year.
She did not win the Globe that year, right?
She didn't. Oh, okay, interesting. Okay.
Viola won the Globe.
I take it all back.
Wait a second. Viola won SAG. Daniel, do you know?
Yeah, I think Streep won the Globe and Viola won SAG.
Okay.
Oh, there you go.
That's right. She did win the Globe. She's won more Globes than anybody in history.
Yeah. And that's to like, let's just sort of play out these scenarios. Like, so Streep wins. Obviously, she's going to give as you always say, Tom, these precursor awards are kind of your audition for the Oscar. Like, what's your acceptance speech can be like. So say if it's Sally Hawkins, because they like Shape of Water, over Frances McDormand. I mean, that's Sally Hawkins' chance to kind of show Oscar voters that
because
it's her.
I knew that 3 Billboards, one of the reasons I put it up for Best Picture at the Oscars and got a lot of flack for it is quite a few HFPA people have told me that how much they liked it. Now, they don't, when I talk to the HFPA people, I don't ask them what do they vote for and the rest of it. I just say, what do you like? And you never know when we're in this cycle of what they've seen and what they haven't seen. But consistently, 3 Billboards and Shape of Water were up there, and Dunkirk was not. I mean, Dunkirk got the nominations. I had thought, based on what I had heard, that Christopher Nolan was not going to be nominated for Best Director because from the gossip that I heard, I have no second source for it. But a very, very reliable Oscar consultant told me that Nolan didn't do a press conference for the HFPA for Dunkirk, which was a big mistake because they want to be special. Desperate Housewives, and Ava Longoria was the only housewife not nominated. She was the only one who didn't show up for the press conference. I mean, they take this stuff very seriously. So he got in, but the support for Dunkirk isn't as big as we might suspect it is. They are crazy about Three Billboards. They're crazy about Shape of Water. They love The Post. And was under the impression they really liked Lady Bird until it got skunked in writing and directing. Wow.
Well, it got writing. But what really got skunked was The Big Sick. I remember Chris and I watched that on the plane to New York, and we're like, oh, this is getting in. They're gonna love this. No nominations at all. Nothing.
And that's strange because they took care of Amazon very well last year with 5 or 6 nominations for Manchester by the Sea, and they really reach out to these new players in the awards front. For example, Mozart in the Jungle won a billion globes. Another Amazon product, a TV show, recently. So they go out of their way to do that, and they did it in this case for some other Amazon products we'll talk about on the TV side.
And then I just wanted to make mention, because this morning I was kind of collating the Critics Awards, what films and performances have been winning with the early Critics Awards. We're going to start seeing a real avalanche of those. It starts with New York and LA, and now we're starting to see the regional ones. And I was surprised when I was touting everything up that there's been 9 groups heard from, and the Florida projects won Best Picture with 4 of them. I mean, not with New York and LA, but now we're hearing from the regions. Globe voters completely indifferent to it, other than Willem Dafoe. But I mean, Sean Baker's won Best Director from a couple of critics groups. I mean, I think is that more of an Oscar movie, do you think, Chris, than a Globe movie? I mean, is that why we didn't see it represented here?
More of a critics movie. The question is, what will the Oscar voters think? What do you think, Chris?
I want to be careful what I say about this movie. It got what it needed today. I'll say that.
Oh, ouch.
Is that praising with faint dams? Is that what that is?
We have on the staff of Gold Derby, we have passionate champions for this movie, and a couple of us who go, but he's great, of course, and can win.
Look at the lineup.
I will say, Willem Dafoe, I know, is the front runner based on all the prizes Paul just mentioned that have come out so far. But as I look at supporting actor, I think Laurie Metcalf's probably an easy pick on supporting actress. But look at how supporting. You always look for that apple in the barrel of oranges we always talk about. You've got 4 sort of veteran character actors, Dafoe, Jenkins, Plummer, Rockwell, up against a young, up-and-coming Armie Hammer.
Yeah.
He might be their Aaron Taylor Johnson this year, very charismatic. He's in a Best Picture nominee. I could see Armie Hammer winning at the Globes.
Aaron Taylor Johnson, by the way, got nominated and won by schmoozing with HFPA. When I asked them, how did that happen? He was there pumping hands, kissing babies, slapping backs among members at their events. And what kept resonating with them is the fact that, he's this very charming British guy who played this really nasty villainous character. They saw a range there in what his performance was. So you can win them, and I don't know how. Armie's been all over this town and has been gracious to us and everybody else, as far as I know. So I'm sure he's working them too.
And I think you see evidence of the personal appeal in that nomination for Helen Mirren for the Leisure Seeker. I mean, that film that had anyone seen it other than Globe voters? But that's again just the besotted with the movie stars. So I think looking here as supporting actress, I think this nomination really helps Mary J. Blige for Mudbound.
Yeah,
I think that gives again a credibility and Hong Chow downsizing. I mean, I'm looking at a few of these things, especially that could be your supporting actor and actress lineup at the Oscars quite easily.
Mm-hmm. Not Hong. There's a problem. There's pushback on her. Maybe not. Maybe this opens the way. There was some grumbling online that her portrayal was too stereotypical of a Southeast Asian. But on the other hand, it's comedic. The role is and gains this gravitas as it goes along. And while the criticism is interesting, the performance stands on its own magnificently too. So take that
And she's out campaigning a lot too. We've seen her at several events.
Yeah, she's very nice. One passion project I was really rooting for Gal Gadot to get in. I thought if anyone would nominate Gal Gadot, it would be the Golden Globes for Wonder Woman. She got snubbed, unfortunately.
Another woman who's been working it hard that I thought would make it in is Jake Gyllenhaal for sure.
Yeah. I thought so too.
So that's a surprise that he's not in, especially. I mean, that could be your lineup at the Oscars minus maybe Denzel. We don't know about him, but that movie's sort of had an up and down struggle at the different screenings and so forth. But that was a little bit of a surprise to me.
Yeah.
But I think it's nice that sort of an embarrassment of riches, like the fact that Darkest Hour didn't get nominated for Best Drama. I mean, because you sort of look and go, well, that's such a great lineup as it is. So I think that's when if you're Darkest Hour or The Big Sick or The Florida Project, you're probably really happy that the Oscars have a preferential ballot that there's room for up to 10 films in the category.
Yeah, The Big Sick is a big surprise here at the Globes because the members love it. The ones I spoke to just were rapturous about it. So how it ended up getting skunked here, I don't know.
This year's comedy lineup is very strong, though. I mean, you have The Disaster Artist, Get Out, The Greatest Showman, I, Tonya, Lady Bird. No Big Sick, but also no Beauty and the Beast. We all had Beauty and the Beast in there a month ago, probably.
I wonder if, because Get Out has that social, that, even though it came out in February, it is still being talked about and it's part of the conversation right now. Whereas The Big Sick and Beauty and the Beast were both released in the spring, and they just saw Greatest Showman. They probably just saw I, Tonya. They probably saw Lady Bird a few weeks ago. The Disaster Artist. The Disaster Artist, Tom. Is that one? I mean, James Franco. I mean, that's good.
Been working them brilliantly, and of course, that's Lisa Tabeck, the great campaigner, and her team. They have done a superb job promoting that film across awards land out here in Los Angeles, and so that's not a surprise. He was not nominated for Deuce. Is that right? On the
right.
Yeah, which was surprising. So we had thought maybe there would be multiple nominations here. But they're not. But let's go back to the Darkest Hour for a second. I was a bit surprised by that too. I had heard from sources within HFPA that it would not be nominated, and it turns out it's true. What makes it so strange is it is such a magnificent movie on so many levels. It certainly deserves to be there. But it's directed by Joe Wright, who, remember his movie Atonement, shocked everybody by winning Best Drama Picture years ago at the Globes. So they love him and love his movies. So that was especially surprising that this movie, which I would say, in my personal opinion, not that matters, is even better than Atonement, didn't get in. I was surprised.
Well, it's certainly. Chris has mentioned that the Globe Prediction Center will be live soon, and certainly that's. We need everyone to make those predictions so that we can come steal them, and certainly, and to generate the odds because our odds did so well today, predicting close to 80% of the lineup we had predicted. So,
wow.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, we're going to talk about TV separately, and then and that's where they really have fun when they talk about embracing everything brand new and shows I'd never even heard of. So that'll be fun. So.
Okay, let's wrap it up. Thanks.